Hello and welcome back to the history of video gaming. My name is Ben and I am joined, as always, with the one and only Wes. How you doing, Wes?
Oh my God, with an intro like that, I have to be feeling good. I'm doing great, man. How are you?
I'm doing all right. I'm a little tired. It's been a very long weekend for me. I've been recording a new YouTube video of me playing through a bunch of stuff, and man, why did I make some of these so hard? I don't understand, but it's weird because it's like when I'm recording them, I have a week to make a single song sound really nice, and now I've got one weekend to make 5 songs look really good on video. And it's just been kind of a long weekend, but it's been very good, and I think everyone's going to enjoy the product at the end. So check out our website, and that'll be posted there as soon as it comes out. But that's what I've been doing. What have you been doing, Wes? How you been feeling?
I've been good. I mean, barring the slight craziness over social media over the weekend, which not sure if you were a participant in, but I won't get into it. And also the weird news that Mixer's dead. Surprise.
Oh, yeah.
Mixer is
I
no
saw
more. But basically what I've been up to on the gaming side of things is playing the new expansion that just came out for Pokemon Sword.
Oh,
Well,
nice.
Pokemon Sword and Shield, yeah. I hadn't followed it at all since I played through the game the amount that I wanted to and caught whatever. Didn't really complete the Pokedex or anything like that, but I kind of beat the main story and I was like, I don't really feel like doing much of the end game stuff. So I hadn't been paying attention to the news about it, and the day it released, I was like, oh shoot, there's new Pokemon out now. So it worked out well for me. I wasn't paying attention. It's like, hey, look, new content. I hadn't bought the expansion yet, but seeing as it was only $30 for both expansions, I was like, yeah, that's actually not that bad.
Mm-hmm.
I'm hoping the second expansion will be bigger because this one does feel a little small so far, but it is pretty good, and I haven't beat all of it yet. So this one's called the Isle of Armor DLC. You travel to a different island. They introduce a few new Pokemon to the series. I think maybe 4 total or 5 total. But then the bulk of the new Pokemon to catch are ones that are just they hadn't introduced in the base game. So depending on your stance on the whole National Pokedex not being available at the very beginning of the game, it might seem like not a lot of added content. But again, for me, who's only really played Gen 1, a little Gen 2, and then recently Gen 5, it's still new content for me. So really enjoyed that. Bunch of new stuff to catch. The new legendary that you get right at the beginning is pretty cool. It evolves, which I forget if it's the first or just one of the few legendaries that actually evolves into something else. So that's pretty sweet. Little karate bear that turns into a big, angry, muscular karate bear.
Okay.
If that's your thing, yeah. And it also has 2 different forms, which is neat. It's a different additional typing, either water or dark type, along with fighting type, depending on which path you take. So you can only get one of them. So I like that. Gives you some options. And one thing that I found out when I was playing that's real weird, I was looking to trade online with people who had Shield for some of the version exclusives that I wanted. I hadn't done it before because I didn't feel like buying Nintendo online, but once Animal Crossing came out, I caved and bought it. So going back to Pokemon with that, I was checking it out, and they don't have any system to post in an online message board through Nintendo and say I want this, I have this, do you want to trade? There's just no functionality for that.
Wow.
From the brief bit I looked into it, I think it's because I love Pokemon, but it is definitely geared towards kids in a lot of ways, so a lot of kids play it. And I think people were getting scammed by just I don't know, people my age who play the game and just feel like scamming 10-year-olds. I don't know why people do that, but they'd be somehow trick kids to be hey, give me your legendary that you only get one of, and I'll give you this cool Pidgey or something like that.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that's explicitly why they took it out of the game or if it was ever a full feature in a game. I was just kind of reading about it tangentially, but it's strange. You can only set a code to trade with specific people who have that code, or do a random trade where you just throw a Pokemon out there and somebody can give you whatever they want for it.
What the heck?
They also just put something in a random trade not knowing what they'll get. So it's really weird to get version exclusives unless you specifically have a friend with the other version. I mean, there's like message boards on Reddit where people coordinate trading those things, so you can do that. It just seems kind of strange. Like,
Yeah.
it's fun to have version exclusives in the way that it's like, oh, if I get this one, I get these guys, and that's cool. But I didn't think they'd want to make it that much of a barrier to get the version exclusives on the other version.
I don't know. They want you to get two of them, Wes.
That's true. That's true. I just need to make my. I bought the 2 pack of Sword and Shield, and my friend who plays Shield hasn't been playing it much, so I just need to get her to actually play it and trade me some. But
Mhm.
but people on Reddit actually have made a series of codes that you can put in for that like buy code trading I was talking about. And if you put in that code and somebody else puts in that code, which is like this semi agreed upon system, then you're probably going to trade for like these two specific Pokemon. So the internet found out a way to make an actual trading system where there wasn't one. So I'm going to try that probably this weekend, mess around with that, see if I can get some version exclusives. I tried it once and it was two people from Sword trying to trade each other the same thing. So it doesn't always work out. There's not unique codes for each game. Everyone's just putting in the same code, but it's weird. I just wanted it to be easier than it was. But the expansion itself so far is really good. I'm excited to keep playing it.
Nice. I'm glad. Sounds cool.
Yeah, always happy for more content. I'm a big fan of Pokemon Sword. I have Joy-Con drift now on my Joy-Con, which makes me feel like Nintendo's scamming me yet again. But I'm gonna send that in eventually and get it fixed. So we'll see. Hopefully, I'll get a new one of those.
Didn't they have like a recall for those?
I think,
Or no?
as far as I saw, I think if you send one in within warranty, maybe even not within warranty, they'll just fix it for free
Okay.
or just send you a new one.
Mm-hmm.
So I think I'm still within warranty, but I don't know if it matters. So hopefully they'll either fix it or just send me a new one. I'd appreciate a new one, but I'd be fine either way. So,
Yeah.
but other than that, yeah, it's been good. But what have you been up to? I guess the videos were the main thing. You got any games you were
Yeah.
playing recently?
I'm still playing WoW. Still feeling dirty about it, but it's been going well. I'm slowly making my way through the questing world, but I know I was like communicating with you off stream because I got this one quest that was like wanting me to tear out my eyeballs, but that was the only like main issue though so far. I basically was the result of a 0.5% drop that I needed. 0.5. So on average I had to kill 200 dudes.
Yikes.
I actually just found I wasn't looking for it or anything, but I literally just found a video that was like the 3 worst quests in Classic WoW. And of course I'm not playing Classic, so maybe it's a little different, but it was one of those 3 which I didn't even know about. But yeah, so I guess I have one of the hardest quests done now. I don't know, but
Maybe that's a good sign then if the one that you're like, this is a pain in the butt, it's actually one of the hardest according to some people.
yeah. So who knows, but I'm glad it's done now, and I'm looking forward to playing more, honestly. So we'll see what happens though. Why don't we move on to the special topic though, Wes? This is kind of a big episode, I feel. We're talking about one of the Holy Trinity of computers in 77, along with the Commodore PET, which we've already done, and the TRS-80, which we have not done yet. But of the 3, I'd say this is probably the biggest one, just because it's Apple, and this is a pretty important one. So Wes is gonna open it up, talk a little bit about the hardware, and then if I have anything to add, we'll see what happens at the end.
Got to keep us on our toes here, keep it interesting.
Yeah.
But yeah, so the Apple II, I mean, obviously we know how important Apple is. And I know previously when we were in 76, we alluded to the fact that there's going to be lots of games for the Apple II as well. But the Apple II was the first computer designed by Apple for the consumer market. The first one, Apple one, was really just like a hobbyist kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
But on this one, Steve Wozniak was the main designer again. Steve Jobs was kind of helping work with other people to make the plastic case and the aesthetic for this to make it appealing for the consumer market. But as far as like how it actually worked, Steve Wozniak was the main guy on it. The logo for this, interestingly, like the Apple logo, they changed to the sort of spectrum of colors that I feel like when I think old school Apple, that's the one that pops into my head where it's just a rainbow Apple. They
Hmm.
changed that for the Apple II because they wanted to advertise that, hey, look, the Apple II actually has color capabilities in the computer, which
Whoa.
is super cool. And for a consumer product, it was kind of unheard of, I think, in the price range at the time. I think there may have been some like high end or maybe like government level kind of stuff that could do color display, but nothing that was like you could buy this and put it in your home and then have a color display.
Hmm.
So, just a little bit about the actual hardware that was in the Apple II. It used a MOS Technology 6502 processor. It actually came with two game paddles, which were like a little button and a dial on the top that plugged into the computer. It also had a built in keyboard, so it's kind of that whole case and keyboard all in one piece that we've been seeing. And it had the ability to pair with a TV set, and I think it also came with a small display itself. It also had a built-in speaker, which I feel like is kind of crazy for computers. You're not tuning into a
Yeah.
radio station anymore.
Yeah.
So I'm interested to see how many things or how many games we look at that actually take advantage of that. It sounded like it also had some stock sounds that it could play too that it came with. And originally, it came with a cassette player. Later, I think in the late 70s or early 80s, it actually switched so that they had a floppy disk drive with it. But for now, it
Mhm.
had a cassette tape player, which, as we've seen with some of the other things, is how a lot of people were passing around games on cassette tapes. The cost for this, when it first came out for the base model, was $1,298 in not accounting for inflation, which would be around $5,476 today.
Yikes.
It's advertised as a cheap alternative, even at the time. So I'm guessing that only means by comparison to like comparable capability computers.
Yeah.
So, I mean, $5,500 is a lot for me right now. So I don't know
Yeah.
how affordable it was in 77, but I guess affordable enough that it was very popular and made an impact in the consumer market, which not a lot of computers had done before. That pricing was for the base model, which had 4 kilobytes of RAM, and it went up in storage at the time of its release in 77 all the way to 48 kilobytes of storage. And I think it's kilobytes. It's K lowercase IB, so I could be getting that wrong. And an interesting thing when I was looking at some of the reviews of this of consumer magazines of the time is that they referred to it as a appliance computer because it was this big transition from like the workman's machine computer to a computer that you put in your home like any other appliance that you would have, like a microwave or like a toaster. So I just thought that was a funny kind of wording and interesting that that was the transition for people at the time to say like, no, it's an appliance now. That's what means it belongs in the home, sort of.
Hmm.
But that was all I had for it. Did you have anything you wanted to add in there, Ben?
I just wanted to kind of mention or try to get across how important this computer is. I mean, obviously, it's one of the Holy Trinity, and it's going to bring about a revolution in computer games. But I thought maybe I'd, glance ahead a little bit, Wes, give you a little bit of a heads up of what's coming up.
Oh yeah.
I've already been working on 1978's research. Okay. It's not done, but I probably have 95% of the games. So, you know how every year we have, I want to say maybe like 5 to 10 computer games total?
Hmm.
Is that right? That sound about right to you? Not including the basic ones.
Right, because if you count those, that's tons. But as far as like the
Yeah.
Play-Doh games that we look at and stuff like that, I'd say that's probably
Mhm.
pretty fair.
Yeah, so like 5 to 10. Well, the Apple II releases 20 games approximately next time. With the Holy Trinity combined, we're looking at over 50 games. And that's not even including Play-Doh games. So
Wow.
this is about to like get crazy with these computers, and it's really the combination of factors that you mentioned. It's the having color, having sound. It's available to like the average Joe, so anybody can make video games. Even I think one of the manuals that came with the Apple II talked about how to make your own game in the Apple II, which is crazy.
Oh, nice.
I'll talk about it more a little bit later once we get into the games, but Steve Wozniak was like really interested in games on the on the PC, so he actually kind of like championed that a little bit on this one especially.
Oh,
So
nice.
yeah, so it's a really big deal, just like kind of to help out how we got here because the Apple one, as you mentioned, it was a bit of a hobbyist computer. They sold a fair amount, but Apple was a very small company at that time. I just wanted to kind of go into their kind of corporate side for a second and just talk about how they were able to really push this. They had an investor in early 77 named Mike Markula. I'm guessing that's how you say it. Apparently, you can learn about him in the Steve Jobs documentary, I think. But essentially, he gave $250,000 to Apple and became a co founder. And I guess that just exploded their production capabilities and advertising and everything. And I looked up Mike Markula a little bit. He apparently made millions on the stock market and then retired at 32. So he had some time to check this out, and I'm assuming he did pretty well. I'm not sure though, but I'm assuming he made his money back because the Apple II obviously is very very popular and sold really really well. So I think that's all I really had. What do you think, Wes? Should we move on to the games?
Yeah, I think like that sounds like a good idea. And I don't know if we mentioned, but we are going to be covering some demo games for Apple II today as well. So that might be
Yes.
just another great way to talk about why this is so exciting. How's it going, everybody? Welcome back. Let's get straight into the timeline and start off today with a game that I covered. Holy cow, right into it. No honorable mentions. Let's go.
That's because we're in June of '77, and it's just like a busy month. I don't know. There's been a lot of good games this month.
We got a lot of stuff going on. The first one we want to talk about that I got to play and take a look at is Safari by Sega slash Gremlin. I think it's developed by Gremlin, maybe the cabinets by Sega. I actually forget where the division is there, Ben. But
I think Sega's like a publisher, like in the more traditional kind of sense.
okay, so they both ended up publishing this one. And this came out, as Ben said, with all of these in June of 77. And the cabinet itself is green with jungle like illustrations all over the side of it and like an old timey British hunter looking kind of dude on the side too.
Nice.
I couldn't see very well, but there might also be someone kicking his butt, climbing on his back to like compete and hunt. I don't know what was going on the side because I couldn't get multiple angles of the cabinet, but visually it looks pretty interesting. And I do like that the whole cabinet is like green paint instead of just parts of it being interesting and the rest being like wood grain or something like that. It also looks like there's a pretty complex overlay that, unfortunately, all of the videos that we found for this game were of either a version of it with no overlay, like just the game, or various emulated versions of it that didn't have any representation of the overlay. So I couldn't confirm exactly what the overlay looked like with the game, but it looks like from the cabinet it was sort of the type that we've been seeing where it has sort of the hand painted feel and it's the recessed screen with the reflection type display so that it looks like all of the graphics are sort of in the environment created by the overlay. We're not positive about that, but that's what it looked like, I'm pretty sure. And then so there is a tree in the middle of the screen that in the game that I played in the emulator is just represented by a white vertical line. But basically that's there to be an obstacle for the bullets that you shoot in the game. And then there's also a hut overlay in the bottom left of the screen that represents sort of like a spawn point for your hunter. It says something in the flyer about once you leave the safety of your hut. I'm not sure if there was actually invulnerability when you're in the hut or if that was just like flavor text. I couldn't really figure it out when I played the game. But anyway, getting into the gameplay for Safari, it's a one-player game where you're basically shooting a bunch of different targets with a Safari theme. The player, who's the hunter in this case, can move in 4 different directions, can shoot left or right, and then can also shoot at 3 different angles in either of those directions. And you're shooting at snakes, lions, boars, and vultures. The snakes and lions, they travel slowly across the screen, and they're all worth 100 points each. The boars move horizontally across the screen, but they're like really fast boars. They're little tiny boars. I don't know why, but they're tinier than the lions, and it confused me for a sec. I thought they were like mice, but definitely supposed to be boars. They're worth 200 points, and then the vultures fly around at the top of the screen in sort of a swooping diagonal or a zigzag kind of pattern, and they're worth 300 points. So you have 90 seconds, and you can die as many times as you want. That doesn't really count, it's just a timer. And you get a free game up to, or when you get up to 3,000 points. Not sure if that was programmable based on the owner, but 3,000 points is what I was playing off of as sort of like a benchmark of when I would get a free game. As I mentioned with the character dying, you do like blink and respawn if you get hit by any of the animals. And he does sort of like this great dramatic falling over animation, or well, it's just 2 sprites, but the second sprite with him on the ground is pretty funny. So then getting into my ratings for this, because it's kind of hard for me to describe without just going straight into it. The graphics, I gave it a 2.5 out of 10. This is another one where the overlay really helps the visual appeal of the game, so playing it on the emulator without it felt kind of empty, but seeing what it could have been, I wanted to give it a little bit of points for that. The overlay kind of gives it this complex design, but because, as we've seen with some of the other complex overlays, they create the whole environment based on stuff that's not in the game, you can really do a lot more with the animations and the complexity of the sprites. So overall, the animals and the hunter all look pretty good. Not fantastic, pretty well detailed, but they all have enough detail that you can tell pretty easily what each thing is. There's 2 different sprites for movement, which creates, like a okay back and forth in animation for running. And there's also, I think, 2 different sprites for death animations for every single thing, for your character and for all the animals. Some of them are like weird and kind of sad. Like when you shoot the lion, it just like throws his legs into the air and then skids across the ground. It's real brutal. But they do add a little bit of extra to the game, and having that many sprites is pretty impressive. And the hunter itself also looks really good. He's got like these ridiculous poofy safari pants, like when I picture sort of old-timey English dude going elephant hunting in India or whatever, like that weird like stereotypical sort of safari outfit look. I don't know if that's a weird image I have in my mind or if that makes sense to people listening as well, but
I know what you mean. It's like full khaki.
Exactly, yes. The full khaki outfit. And it really represents that pretty well. I knew with all the animals and with the hunter, like exactly what I was looking at with the sprites. For sound, unfortunately, we couldn't find any videos of the game with sound. The flyer states, Gremlin's famous audio engineering has recreated the jungle and its wild creatures with sound sensations. And so we're just going to have to take their word for it, because I really don't know what the sound sounded like. Hopefully something like the cool bear noises that we heard in Triple Hunt, but we don't really know for sure. For gameplay, I gave it a 2 out of 10. The setting is really interesting, and I think the sprites look really good, but the gameplay just kind of felt weird for how large the hunter is compared to everything else on the screen. Like when we were talking about the original gunfight, the cowboys are kind of gigantic in that because they wanted to get as much detail as they could, and they couldn't really make it small based on the pixels that they could display in the arcade cabinets. This is a little bit better than that, but the hunter still feels like really big, towering over all the other animals that he's hunting. So that was a little bit strange. You're supposed to maneuver around the screen, but also anytime you get hit by an animal, you die. So it made it kind of tough to do that. And also, there's really long death animations for all of the animals, which is really threw me off when I was playing it. I was going through and shooting each target about 3 times, thinking that they had like variable health or like the boar had more health than the tiger. But then I just realized that after you hit them, it takes about 3 seconds before they disappear off screen, which seems really long for like a death animation in a video game.
So like they just keep running and then they fall over after 3 seconds.
Yeah, well, that's when they had two different death animations. Like for the boar, you would shoot it, and then like its legs would kind of go up for like 3 seconds, and then would like splat against the ground and then disappear.
Oh.
So it was real strange because until you got used to it, you're like, oh god, it's still coming at me. And the other weird thing is, while they're in that death animation for like 3 seconds, if they hit you, you still die. So you like shoot this
Oh.
boar and kill it, but then it just like flies at you like a missile, and you still get knocked out, which was definitely really funny, but it was also just didn't really feel right for the type of game. And another thing that might have sort of gave me a disconnect between the fact that they had them lingering on the screen and the fact that you shoot them and kill them in one hit is that you get the score as soon as you hit it, too. So it just seemed a little weird that they had it lingering around for so long, but it is pretty funny that they can still, you shoot them, but they get their revenge if you stay there too long. So another weird thing about this gameplay is that you can move anywhere on the screen, which is really nice. But since I kept getting hit because of how huge the hunter model is, I just decided to stop moving at one point, stand at the bottom of the screen, angle my gun up, and always just shoot based on timing. And I got almost 3,000 points on my first try doing that. So it felt real weird that I was just able to stand in one corner and get that score. But overall, I think the gameplay was still pretty fun. It was just maybe didn't gel with the way that I was playing it.
It seemed like your main dude couldn't move that fast compared to the animals when I was playing it.
No, I felt like there was some kind of disconnect with how big he was, how fast he could move, and then just the amount of animals on screen at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
It was impressive how many animals I had on the screen at the same time, but it just felt like you didn't stay in a generally safe spot. You were going to get hit, and there wasn't much you could do about it. Yeah, because he didn't move very fast. So, getting into the relevance for Safari, I gave it a 7 out of 10, which is pretty high, but we're going to see that just right after this, Taito is going to release a licensed version of this as well. And also, it's continuing to add to the roster of shooting games and arcade cabinets. And I feel like every arcade that you go into now has the sort of Safari Hunter themed game, even though a lot of them are light gun games now. So I think it's relevant for that aspect of it. And also, I feel like the fact that Taito and Gremlin and Sega all had their hands in making some sort of Safari game means that even if it wasn't super duper popular or super fun, it's still got to be pretty important because all three of them had a hand in it in some way.
Yeah, maybe like very popular in Japan, I guess, maybe.
Yeah, it could have been since both Sega and Taito made it. It may have also been popular in America as well, I'm not too sure, but yeah, it's had to be doing something right to get all those companies to want to make it.
Mm-hmm.
So then overall, I gave it a 2 out of 10. It's pretty fun, and I think it's an interesting addition to the timeline. I really would have loved to hear the sound, but even with the good graphics and all that, the gameplay still felt a little janky. So it wasn't anything crazy exciting compared to like when we first saw Gunfight, but I think it still did some cool stuff in the sort of target shooting, gunfight-ish genre, and really added a little bit to those kind of arcade cabinets. That's pretty much all I have for Safari. And then next up, we have our honorable mention for Safari by Taito. And this one actually comes out in July. We decided to cover it now because when I looked at it, basically everything's the same. Gameplay, I think, is exactly the same, except for maybe some of the animals that moved horizontal in the original Safari moved diagonal in this one. But it also had a savanna aesthetic instead of a jungle aesthetic, and they switched all the animals around to match that. But as far as I could tell, that was like the only difference.
Do you happen to know the animals they used?
I know some of them. There was a bison, I think, or a wildebeest. I think a gazelle, and I forget what they switched out with the bird. To be honest,
Probably some other bird.
I think so, some other bird, and I don't think there was a snake. It might have been some other type of like deer or like antelope or something like that.
Okay.
And they did look like distinctly different, so it was cool that they switched that up. But the gameplay, I'm sure, wasn't that different.
Hmm. Well, cool. I'm glad that you kind of liked it. I feel, or at least it sounds that way.
It was interesting, yeah, and it had a lot of cool stuff to it. It was just the gameplay felt a little weird, but yeah, other than that, I did enjoy it.
Yeah, I was a little bit nervous giving it to you, to be honest. I don't know why. Like it looks good, obviously, but when I was testing it out, I was like, the gameplay is lacking a little bit here. Maybe it's just
Yeah,
because like the last game that did this kind of thing was probably Boot Hill, which I absolutely adored. So maybe compared to that, it just wasn't as good. But
yeah, definitely not as exciting as some of the other ones we've seen, but it's an interesting twist on it at least.
mhm. All right, cool. Well, let's move right on to the first one that I rated this week. It's called Mattel Electronic Football. It's the first handheld that we've done all year, I think, right?
That
And it
sounds right.
came out in June of 77. And yeah, I'm just kind of excited that we get more handheld Mattel stuff. This one, I think this one's actually my favorite so far, to be honest. It's very similar to some of the other ones that we've done, like Missile Attack, but I just think the theming is really good, and it has that kind of quality that's like makes you want to keep playing it for whatever reason.
Yeah,
So I just was able to look up videos for this, but I was actually able to kind of play it because I actually have my dad's original Mattel Electronic Football 2, which comes out in 78. Obviously, we'll cover that in 78, but the gameplay is pretty similar, so I was able to use that to help me rate this as well. But for this original football, basically the handheld itself, it's, kind of Game Boy sized. It's got a couple buttons on it, mainly like forward, backwards, start, restart. There's a kick button, which I'll talk about a little bit later. And then I think a switch sides button, maybe. The actual handheld, it's what is, I forget what our other term for LCD was. Was it, I think it was VFD, but it's the same like little red dot LCD things that we've seen for these Mattel handhelds in the past. But it's a very small like little board of those over top a football field, and there's actually even like a 3D printed, kind of coliseum like seating around the game arena, which is pretty cool.
nice.
Yeah, I thought it was pretty nice. And there's also a score screen, a timer, and it also lists like down and stuff. It uses shorthand for some stuff, which is a little confusing, but if you played it a lot, I'm sure you could look up there and really know what's going on. So, but that's kind of it. The whole like lower third of it is just a speaker and then like a logo. So it's kind of blank, but the actual gameplay where you're looking for the most part is kind of well detailed, I thought. As far as actually how you play the game, it's kind of like you have a dot that starts on the left side of the screen. There's a series of dots on the right hand side of the screen, which is the defenders. And every, second or two, a defender will move towards the player. Now it's kind of random how they do that. So what you have to do is kind of chill out in the back, let them move a little bit until one of them kind of goes more in front of the other ones, and that creates a hole where you can go kind of around that guy and behind him and then through the hole, if you will. And you can go through the hole, go all the way to the touchdown. There's one safety in the back you just have to dodge. And then once you get to the end zone, you get taken back to like your own end zone again, back on the left side of the screen. It kind of restarts and you do it again. You have to go through twice to get a touchdown, a single touchdown. And the reason why they do that is they actually have line markers, which is every time you press the button, I think you go 5 yards. But they only have line markers for what would be 50 yards for the screen, which is why you have to do it twice to get the whole things, which is kind of weird, but I can get over it, I guess.
Right. I guess they for what they wanted to do to be able to display the whole field, the dots would have been like so tiny or something.
Yeah. And then it makes the game a little bit more challenging, which I don't think the game is that challenging. So I didn't mind it at all, really. But that's basically the gameplay. Your, running back character cannot go backwards, and none of the defenders can go backwards either. So it's kind of makes it hard. And also because the defenders move randomly towards you, they can just never open up a hole for you to go through, and you just lost down, and there's nothing you can do about it. But most of the time there's a hole and you can go through it, and then it's just kind of getting through that hole, getting past the safety, doing it twice without one of those defenders kind of going into the hole, which they can go downwards and upwards, so they can kind of block you. A big part of that is I think you can move as fast as you want to. They are on like a timer, like every second a person moves. So if there's a hole, you can kind of like spam the button and go try to get in there, which is kind of fun. It's a fun little mechanic, I think.
Yeah, it almost makes it like football Frogger kind of thing.
Yeah, kind of like a football Frogger, yeah. And I'm a big fan of Frogger games, so as everybody knows. So I quite liked it, honestly. Let me get into my ratings. Maybe I could talk about it more there. Let's start with gameplay. I like the gameplay. I give it 2.5 out of 10. For whatever reason, this game just has a one more play kind of feel to it. I don't really know why. I think it's just very satisfying to spam your way through a hole in the defense and get past the safety. I don't know. It's just one of those things that I could do for a while and not get bored of it. Even though it's the same thing over and over again, because they move randomly, the hole is different every time and you never quite know what's going to happen. So I don't know. I just really kind of enjoyed it for whatever reason. Maybe it's because I played football too when I was young. I'm sure that has something to do with it, as well as some of the other Mattel games that my dad still has. But I did play football too when I was super young. So this kind of brought back some memories there. So I don't know. I just like the gameplay. I could definitely play it for a while. The weird thing about it though is they have a home score and a visitor score, and you can't play defense, and the computer can't play offense. So I don't know if they expect you to like give it to somebody else and have them play as the visitor, and then you just watch them and see how many points you can get before they kick or whatever, and you switch. But I couldn't really find like a one player version. So I think you were supposed to just do both teams, I guess. In a normal game, it seems that part kind of confused me. There's also a kicking button, but as far as I can tell, it's just complete RNG, and it's not always easy to read where you are on the field or even what down it is. That can kind of get lost, especially when you kind of go to the other end zone, and you're thinking, oh, I just scored a touchdown, I'm back, I have to do another 2 for another touchdown, but really you went past the 50. Like it can get a little confusing. And if you're behind the 50, when you hit kick, it'll obviously punt it, but if you're on the other side of the 50, I think it'll do a field goal attempt. But if you don't really know which side of the 50 you're on, it can be difficult. So in almost all the videos I watch of people playing this, they just always would run for it on 4th down again and try to get as many points as they can, which I think is fun too. But so there's some weird things about it, but in general, I quite enjoyed the gameplay of this, even though it's simple. For graphics, I gave it a 1.5 out of 10. We just have the little LCD dots again, but I guess just in combination with how much I enjoy the game of football and also the little decals on the sides and stuff, you can just kind of imagine that you're playing football. It just gives that illusion, and being the running back going through those holes, it's like, yeah, I can see a running back doing this. So it kind of helps the enjoyment of it. It wasn't some arbitrary thing. So I kind of liked it, even though how simple it was. And it's really like, I think 5 dots total. But it's what you do with those dots. I mean, I can't say anymore. It just felt pretty nice to play, and it makes your imagination run wild, I guess. But 1.5 out of 10 is not too crazy. For sound, it did have sound. Not good sound, I wouldn't say, but I don't know. I gave it a 1 out of 10 for sound. It just basically has like a big beep when you get tackled. I don't think there's even a beep when you get a touchdown, but I think there's a beep when you get tackled. I think there's a beep maybe when you turn the handheld on, but that's kind of it. So there's some things there, but nothing that interesting. For relevance, I give it a 7 out of 10. Now, I don't know if this is the one that really just makes Mattel extremely popular or if it's going to be some other one. I'm not quite sure what that big hitter is, but the fact that they have a football 2 that comes out later that I still own, I'm like, okay, this is obviously like one of the more important ones. And their whole sports line, which I forget if we've done any other ones, any other sports ones. I can't remember what the second one was. Oh, auto race, right?
Yeah, we done auto race.
I think we just have done auto race and missile attack so far, but they're gonna come out with like baseball and hockey and all that stuff. So their whole sports lineup, I think, kind of started from this. So I kind of wanted to boost the relevance a little bit because of that. And then overall, I gave it a 1.5 out of 10. Maybe that's not like the highest score in the world because it's a very simple game and it looks very, very simple. But it's fun. I don't know. That's the bottom line of it. I think it's fun. And even if the other things are lacking, I'd rather play this over a lot of the other ones that we play. So, and it's a handheld, so I can't judge it too harshly. We
Yeah.
don't get a lot of handhelds. So,
I even think that kind of plays in its favor a little bit for whatever reason, but just a certain, I guess, what you expect out of all old handheld is different than what you expect out of like one of these old computer games. Because I remember having a blast watching people play. It looked like it was a real good time for auto race, even though that one's like even more simple.
mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I think just the handheld aspect of it definitely kind of gives it that little extra charm.
Yeah. I love the spamming of the button to go through the defenders really quickly. It made you feel like you were a fast running back, and it also that was where the difficulty of the game came from because if you don't go through that hole fast enough, they'll catch you. You know.
Yeah.
So it kind of just was this tense moment that always happened every time you played, which is really cool. And I guess that's completely random how it happens, but it felt like they were going for you. I don't know. It was a cool one. I enjoyed it. But let's move on. Let's talk about the next one, Wes. This one, it's a black mark on the History of Video Gaming podcast.
Right, yes. So as Ben had mentioned, we had previously talked about Missile Attack, but we just retconned that and we found out that it actually came out after football, which we just talked about.
Yes, I found an additional source that said it was the third one to come out, and that makes Auto Race definitely the first one. I think originally I had that, and then I found something that said Missile Attack was first, and we put it up there, and now I'm taking it back. So,
So just to set the record straight, Auto Race was first. Pretty sure now, pretty confident Missile Attack was third, football was second.
yep. So, yeah, just wanted to retcon that. And of course, that means Missile Attack now came out in 77 instead of, I think, before we had it in 76. Actually, to be fair to us, we might have actually said we don't really know about this one.
I feel like we did, but either way, we're setting it straight now.
Yeah. Moving on from that, we've got baseball. This is a basic game made by Garth Dolahite, where you have to type in a number, and then basically the person pitching types in a number, and depending on if they're the same number, I think it's like a home run. If it's one off or something, it's a hit. If it's like two off, it's a out or something. It's some weird random baseball game with no actual gameplay. And since it's a basic game, we couldn't play it.
Sounds like where Nintendo got their inspiration for their Pokemon trading system.
Yeah.
Just type in random numbers or throw a random Pokemon out and see what happens. But then next up, we have an honorable mention, which directly connects to the game that I'm going to talk about next. So first, the honorable mention is Video Chase by Joseph Sanger, I believe is how you say the last name. And this is a version of a game that we've mentioned, but we haven't talked about in depth, called Chase. And this version, Video Chase, was written in BASIC language. And it kind of displayed it through text with printouts instead of what we're going to see in the game I'm going to talk about, which is a Play-Doh version with sort of quote unquote graphics. But this version that was made by Joseph Sanger was written for compatibility with the 8080 processor. And the game itself is basically you're thrown into this zone where you can't touch the edges, and there's 20 or a varying number of random objects scattered throughout. But if you touch them, you die. And there's also things moving towards you every single turn that you want to kind of move your character in a way that you trick all of the robots or whatever they call it based on the game to run into the fence objects and die. And then when all of them are destroyed and you're still alive, you win the game. So that's the basic chase gameplay, and we're going to see a lot of these chase kind of games. Video Chase was the same sort of thing. The enemies were called robots in this, and there were 5 of them, and the obstacles were fences. And this one did have basically the same sort of thing, except some unique changes to it. In Video Chase, if 2 robots ran into each other, they joined up and made unpredictable movements, which right in the article where this was published, the creator says that was actually a bug that he just decided to keep in because he thought it was funny. And then there's also a panic button in this where you just type P or type panic, and you have a % chance that you will be randomly teleported to another location on the map. And the % chance is different based on the difficulty that you select when you start the game. So that's just a basic overview of Video Chase, but next we're going to talk about a version of this chase game that I got to look at a little bit more in depth called Hi-Voltz.
Yeah, actually, before we do that, Wes, I just want to mention that Video Chase by Joseph Sanger was released in Dr. Dobbs' Journal, which is a newsletter that we haven't talked about yet. It actually has been coming out, I think, for months now. And I think it's also by the People's Computer Company people. But I went through all the games and all the articles and newsletters for the whole journal, and Video Chase was the only one that stood out to me. There's a lot of games like Lunar Lander and stuff we've already covered. Although I did find games written by Steve Wozniak, which is interesting. But it was like, common basic games that we've already covered. But I wanted to give a shout out to Dr. Dobbs' Journal, because I'm sure we will see that journal again in the future.
Right. And if I remember right, that's just a random pseudonym for the creator of it and the writers. Like, there is no Dr. Dobb, I don't think, but just a funny name that they made up.
Yeah. I like it, though, yeah.
Yeah, it keeps it interesting. It's not the People's Computer Company magazine. But let's get back to talking about Hi-Voltz, which is by Douglas Jones. We've seen some conflicting information about when this was released, but it seems pretty likely based on other chase games that were coming out that this came out in 77. And we actually had a good source for this one from the creator himself, who wrote sort of a short little blog about a bunch of other stuff, but also this game. So while we don't know the date, we do have some other pretty concrete information about it. So just some fun background for this. The game was actually titled or subtitled The Game of Electric Fences, because in this version of Chase, the obstacles are electric fences that shock you and destroy you if you run into them. And the creator says that after he saw a game created using the Unix code language, which was probably sort of a variant of Chase in the Unix language, he got the idea to make Hi-Voltz. And he had been tasked by, I think he was working at the University of Illinois at the time, he had been tasked to, as many people were who were using these computer systems and games, tasked to create a couple different things in the Tutor programming language. So he ended up designing this game, Hi-Voltz, using the Tutor language for the Mod Comp 4 computer, which I do not know much about other than the fact that it was real-time computing, which I think is similar to how the Play-Doh system kind of has a clock in the background that dictates the movements of the calculations of the computer. And also when you create a game on it, it's sort of on this timed, like tick by tick motion or time frame. Like when we were talking about the games where you had to manually refresh or refreshed by tick when we're playing those Play-Doh games. So the Mod Comp 4, I think, did that as well for this game Hi-Voltz that he created. The title screen looks pretty crazy for this. It's like just a nice stylized font with like lightning bolts coming out. The author did confirm that he originally created that and that it's been preserved in the Play-Doh emulator that we use. The enemies in this are called MHOs, which he said is just the word ohms mixed up for like a fun electrician pun. I like that because it's goofy and kind of dumb, but it's great. And the version in Play-Doh that I got to play has smiley faces for your character, frowny faces for the enemy, and an actual like little thing that looked a lot like a fence for the barriers. But the creator did say in the original version of this, it was just number signs for fences, asterisks for the MHOs, and an O for the player. So getting into the gameplay of this one specifically, basically a chase game like I just mentioned. You spawn into a map with electric fences around the perimeter and 20 electric fences scattered throughout the map in various positions. There are 12 MHOs that spawn on the map and move towards you at the end of your turn. And if you touch a fence or an MHO, you die, but also if the MHOs touch a fence, they get destroyed. You can move vertically, horizontally, or diagonally, and in this one, instead of the panic button in Video Chase, you have a jump button, which is 100% guaranteed to just teleport you to a random space. And then after you teleport to a random space, you can still make a move to do any of your normal moves. And then since the MHOs are always moving towards you, you lure them into the electric fences to destroy them, and the fences also disappear when an MHO hits them, so you kind of lose your weapons or your opportunities to kill the MHOs as you go. So for graphics for this, I gave it a 0.5 out of 10. I really liked the Play-Doh graphics, and I was kind of bummed out when I found out that the original didn't have them. So since the original only had one symbol to represent each object, I figured it wasn't as good as some of the other ASCII character graphics we've seen where it's multiple characters to represent one object and it kind of has form and shape. Just one character isn't really that visually appealing, but it was enough that I knew what was going on. 3 distinct symbols and I knew what was what. So it was good in that element, but just really nothing interesting going on visually. For sound, I gave it a 0 out of 10 because there's no sounds, as far as I could tell, in this, unless there were some weird sounds on the original mod comp, but I don't think there were. For gameplay, I gave it a 1.5 out of 10. I think conceptually this type of game can be pretty fun. You kind of use your knowledge of the fact that the enemies are always moving towards you to figure out angles that they will hit the fences and disappear. And I like that there's the jump feature to kind of give you an ace in the hole if you don't really have any other good moves and you just want to mix it up or you can't figure out what else to do. But in the Play-Doh version, the fact that the turns took place on a sort of invisible timer really threw me for a loop. It seemed like I had to time my inputs to match with when my turn was happening, or else it wouldn't register any of the inputs.
Oh no.
Yeah, it made it a little janky, and I don't want to be too hard on the game itself for that because I don't know how it played the original system. It seems like this is a pretty faithful recreation that we played, but just in case it wasn't as bad in the original system, I don't want to be too hard on it. But either way, I feel like this type of game might benefit from being a strictly turn-based type of game. It could be just because I didn't know what was going on, but I felt like I wanted a lot more time to sort of plan out each of my moves, like I was playing chess instead of speed chess, and just kind of figure out where I wanted to go and all my different options. So I think if you played it for a while, then you'd get used to the way that this timer worked, and you might have a lot of fun with it, and it could be challenging in a good way to try and figure that out. But for the amount that I played it, it just ended up being confusing, and I felt like I didn't have enough time to really plan out things strategically. So for relevance, I gave this an 8 out of 10. Even though Hi-Voltz doesn't make a ton of innovations, I still wanted to rate it pretty high because it's an interesting adaptation of the series of chase that we'll be seeing a bunch of times in video game history. And the style also continues throughout the 80s with just basically insert different enemy instead of MHO here based on what the current pop culture event is. Like I saw on Wikipedia that there will be chase games in the future that have Daleks as the enemy from Doctor Who, and
Nice.
like switches up with robots. So it's this real simple concept, but there's something about it that really seemed to stick with a lot of people. Like maybe it was easy to program, or maybe it was a fun challenge to program in different languages. But either way, it's definitely has its place in history and will still continue for years to come in some form or another. So I thought it was definitely pretty relevant because of that. But then overall, for Hi-Voltz itself, I give it a 1 out of 10. I think it's a fun concept, and I love that there's so many variations for it. But for Hi-Voltz itself, I felt like the sort of quote unquote real time gameplay didn't really fit this type of game. The graphics were pretty simple, and it just kind of felt like it didn't have everything it needed to keep me interested in it. But I really do appreciate the sort of goofy electronics humor that adds a nice bit of personality to the game with the ohms and the MHOs. So I think it was an interesting one, just not really something that I feel like the gameplay really made sense for that type of game.
Mm-hmm. Maybe if you had played like the older chase ones that were maybe turn based, like this one would be like, oh, there's an actual challenge now or something. I don't
Right,
know.
exactly. Sort of like a warm up period to it. Because if you're seeing a bunch of these chase games, I could see where this is like the next step. You know, it's like, oh, I don't have time to think anymore. I have to keep moving.
Right.
So, like I said, I don't want to be too hard on because of that, because I do think it makes some cool innovations on changing up the gameplay from the traditional chase game.
And we should also mention every game, everything spawns randomly in different places, right?
That's
So it's a
true.
little different every time.
And I can't believe I forgot that for gameplay. I kind of took it for granted, but that is definitely a big feature about this. The fences, the enemies, and your character spawn in a different place every single time.
And I think on this Play-Doh one, you can, like, if you get a bad spawn, you can just be like, nope, just next one. Is that right?
Yes, I think you are right. And to be honest, I didn't try it because I was dying so fast, but
Yeah, that was me too.
I'm sure you could. Yeah.
Nice. Well, cool. Yeah, I was kind of, I had a lot of high hopes on that one, I'll say. These chase games, I feel like maybe that was not the best one that has come out yet, but I'm hoping that the next one will be even better. So we'll definitely keep an eye out for some chase games going forward. But let's keep going here. We have another honorable mention coming up next. It's called Star Lanes, and it's a space trading game similar to Star Trader.
Ooh.
I know, but it's a basic game, and we could not play it, so we just have to honorable mention it. It did come out on the Interface Age newsletter, which we have mentioned previously. This is another kind of like weird one that we don't talk about that often. The last issue didn't have any other interesting games on it, really. But this one I thought was pretty cool in their June-July issue. Star Lanes. Sounds cool, at least. I don't know. But let's move into Apple II games, because I can't wait to talk about these.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're starting off with some Apple II demo games, which were released with the launch of the system on June 10th of 77. The first one is just color graphics, which sounds like it's kind of like one of those kaleidoscope pattern things on the Soul 20 that we talked about before. Just made patterns in color.
Yep. And then after that, there's color math. Probably just a bunch of math equations. So let's say that's a game.
And then next up, we have Pong with Bricks, which we don't really know what the gameplay is. Interestingly enough, we've seen so many Pong clones, but with bricks, who knows what that means? Is it just like hockey with like barriers or like foosball? I'm not sure.
I think this is I know I mentioned this in the special topic, but Pong with Bricks was supposed to be some sort of example of how to make your own game. It was just a bunch of jargon and basic language. So
I
I
got
don't
you.
really
Okay.
know how you're supposed to do that, but maybe if you put all those instructions in, it would tell you to do something else. I don't really know. But that's gonna move us to the last one here in these demo games, which came out in '77. These were the only games that came out in '77, mainly because even though the Apple II launched in June, I don't think it really took off until '78. But this last one is Breakout, and specifically, it's a Breakout that Steve Wozniak himself programmed. If you guys remember, the original Breakout on Atari's arcade system was influenced by Steve Wozniak. He had a hand in that game, and I've read from multiple sources that the Apple II's specs, like the actual how it was built, was partly based on of whether or not Wozniak could play Breakout on the machine. Like, it was a requirement to make the machine, which is crazy. I mean, it just goes to show like how big of a deal games are to computer development. I mean, he's kind of basing a lot of the specs of the whole machine around this one game, Breakout,
Right.
which is crazy. I'm sure that's where the color came from, because the original Breakout had color, obviously, or it actually had an overlay. But I guess he didn't want to put an overlay on a computer or TV screen. But yeah, it was really interesting to read about, and to think that I'm now playing a Breakout that is like, it's called like the Woz version, right?
Oh yeah.
It's kind of cool. Before I move on, I want to mention when researching this, I actually found two different videos of, well, two different groups of videos for Apple II, the Breakout game that came out in '77. I'm 100% sure which one was the first one, the Woz one, which I'll rate. But I want to mention the other one just because I couldn't find any info on this one. So if you guys know about it, it's called like the high res version, and there's a video of it, and I looked at it, and it's kind of like Breakout, but it's kind of like black and white, and instead of like more rectangle brick like things, it's more like lines, just straight horizontal lines. It's very weird looking. But I know for a fact that's not the Steve Wozniak one. So let's talk about that one, because this one's kind of crazy, Wes. I'm going to try to do my best to describe it at the beginning here. First of all, the first thing everyone needs to know, this is a horizontal version of Breakout, which is weird to me.
Like left to right kind of thing?
Yes.
Oh,
yeah,
strange.
left to right. Yeah, which I don't like. I don't like that at all. But maybe it's just me. I don't know. When you start the game, it asks for your name. I'm not quite sure why it does that. I don't know if there's a high score tracker in it. I didn't see evidence of that, but I can't think of any other reason why it would ask for your name.
Yeah.
So maybe there was. You can also pick the colors of the game. Now, this is kind of crazy to me. First of all, that it has color at all is kind of interesting. But that fact that you can change colors within the options of the game, like, it's not like in the code. It's like it presents you all the colors, and it's like type a number of which color you want.
Wow.
There's 15 colors, and it basically asks like, what do you want the background color to be? 0 to 15. What do you want the paddle color to be? 0 to 15. What do you want the there's two different colors of bricks. So brick 1 color, brick 2 color. And you can just pick from a list of 15 colors, which is crazy.
That's nuts, yeah.
The colors themselves are really weirdly picked though. Of the 15, there's probably like 3 like gray beige-ish colors. There's like 3 pinks, 3 greens, 2 blues, 1 yellow, and 1 orange, which is really kind of a weird. It's kind of like a pastel color palette almost, I'd
Right.
say.
And
Oh, there's also black.
I think that could have something to do with the way that the Apple II created color graphics, which I don't understand entirely, but it seems like it was making use of I think it's the NCST visual cable, and sort of like messing around with how it displayed pixels to make colors. So I feel like they just kind of like rammed it together, and it didn't actually make the normal color palette or the normal primary colors. It just gave you these weird like cyans, magentas, and all that.
Yeah. Yeah, it's definitely kind of a weird grouping, but you can still select the color and it works. It's kind of crazy to me.
Yeah.
It's almost like having 15 different fields to play on. I mean, it's really cool. So I can imagine like playing this at different computers, and different people are like, well, this is the color palette that is the one to go for. And then other people are like, no, you're stupid. This is the one. So yeah, I just thought that was really, really cool. And then talking about the gameplay, why don't I get into my ratings? I can talk about the gameplay there. The gameplay for Breakout, this version is kind of weird to me. For one thing, obviously you're playing horizontally, but then when the ball hits a brick, the brick gets destroyed and the ball ricochets back. But the ball can't, or like won't ricochet off a brick if it hits it from the back side. So the really nice like feeling when you have that, like the ball kind of go around the backside and it's like boop, 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 and it hits a bunch of them.
Yeah.
that never happens because it just goes through the back of the brick that it's going through, and then it keeps going through all the way back to the paddle. And any of those
Oh,
bricks that it goes through the back of get destroyed too. So it makes it a bit of a different play experience, kind of interesting in and of itself, but it's not the Breakout that I wanted. You could just never get a really nice situation where the ball's kind of like whacking a ton of bricks over and over again.
right.
But it does kind of open up some different possibilities. Like I was watching a video and the guy was kind of making a V shape, and if he got the ball in the V shape just right, it would kind of hit the top of the V and then go along the side of the V, and every single side brick that it would hit, it would destroy, and the V would slightly get larger and wider. So one ball would destroy 7 or 8 bricks, which is kind of interesting. There's 8 total rows, by the way. Each row is the same 2 colored bricks. They're kind of just odd and even, kind of one after the next. So we don't have like that really nice like first couple lines are green, second color are orange, last one's red that we've come to expect.
Mhm.
There's none of that. It's just 2 colors. So that's kind of weird to me. I don't like that as much. The ball itself is very clearly the same size as a brick. And the fluid motion is not quite there. It's a little bit kind of RCA2, kind of refresh rate. The refresh rate is much higher than the RCA Studio 2, so it's much, much better. It's like playing something at like 15 FPS.
Right.
Or something, I don't know, but it's definitely not the most fluid. Like arcade machines are way better at this. So that's kind of a downside. The other thing is, instead of hitting a brick and the paddle, it kind of goes through those things for a second and then pops back out, which is kind of weird. But those are kind of the main gripes of it. Otherwise, you're playing just a kind of normal Breakout type game. And Breakout, I love Breakout. And you can clear the whole thing. And if you do, I think it says good job at the end or something like that. I think if you get less than 100 points, it says terrible. Which is cool. You have 5 balls and it keeps score, which is nice. And then the last thing I want to mention is I do think there are 2 different ball speeds. I couldn't quite tell when it goes to the fast speed. I think it's just after maybe 5 or 6 hits. Although it could be getting to like the 4th row or something like that. I'm not quite positive. But it does speed up. It never gets like super fast, but there is that kind of faster gameplay to it, which is nice. So overall, I was pretty happy with it, but there are some like weird things. And at the end of the day, I gave it 2 out of 10. I think it's a decent amount of fun, but I kind of would rather play the one that's on Atari's consoles or their arcade machines.
Yeah. Like there's something so iconic about that guichet or like bouncing in between multiple blocks.
Mm-hmm.
Without it, it's a little, I don't know, it would feel a little hollow to me. I'd almost prefer it if it just like passed through the blocks but didn't destroy them if it wasn't going to ricochet. I don't know.
I don't really know. It felt like a different game, and that different game didn't feel better than the first one, if that made sense.
Right.
So it was just kind of strange. But moving on for graphics here, I give it 1.75. When I found out you could change the colors of everything on the screen other than the ball, I was like, okay, this is pretty cool. And it's color graphics, like true color graphics on a computer. We don't really see that. I'm trying to think, do we see that? Have we seen that at all? I'm sure we have somewhere, but for the most part, games are black and white or like, kind of off green and black or off orange and black or something like Play-Doh. So true color is really, really nice. For sound, this is interesting, Wes. We actually have sound on a computer.
Holy cow.
I know, because the Apple II came with speakers or whatever it was that it used.
Onboard speaker, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, onboard speaker. And I guess this is some of the, pre-programmed sounds that you mentioned previously, but we have 3 different sounds in the game. It's kind of weird when they use them. We have a sound that plays whenever you hit a brick, I think. And then a different sound for when you hit the side of the play area, because it can bounce off the sides. and then you have a third sound, which is the game, like the ball went past your paddle, and you kind of lost it. And those are the three sounds. But weirdly enough, like there's no sound for when your paddle hits the ball, which is weird. But one thing I really liked about these sounds, two of them are basically the Pong sounds that we know, but the like game over sound when the ball passes you, that sounds like an arcade sound. It definitely isn't a Pong sound. It sounds uniquely different. So I was like, wow, there's three different sounds here, and that's more than apparently 75% of the Pong games that we play. And it's on a computer. I just thought it was really, really cool. Obviously, the sounds aren't great, but I ended up giving the sound a 1.5 out of 10 because there's some unique stuff here. But let's move on to relevance. This is going to get the biggest points because playing Breakout by Steve Wozniak himself, the man, the myth, the legend, how could I not give it anything lower than a 7.5 out of 10, Wes? I mean,
ooh, man.
Yeah, obviously is massive not only for the Apple II itself, which I'm kind of throwing in there just in general, but the fact that some of the Apple II's like specs were a complete result of just this one game trying to get into it, it just blows my mind. And obviously Breakout would become very popular on the Apple II, but just the kind of forward thinking in games on a computer in general, I just think is incredibly relevant for the whole history. I mean, it's so cool. And I haven't checked out the games in 78 yet. I think most of the games are going to come out on the Pet, but all of the Apple II ones are like famous
Right.
that come out next year for whatever reason. So I think this is the start of all of that. So really, really cool to see. And that gives me a total score of 2 out of 10. I love Breakout. Maybe this one kind of did some weird stuff, but in general, I'm pretty happy to play it. So, and it felt cool playing. Felt like the future, Wes.
Ooh, yeah.
So,
I like that.
Yeah. So that was Breakout, Steve Wozniak version. That's going to do it for us today. Those are all the Apple II demo games that came out in June, or when the first Apple computers made it to their purchasers. And those are the only games that we're going to cover on the Apple II this year. So we won't talk about it until 78, and that'll be a good time. But thank you guys for sticking with us through this episode. I hope you enjoyed the Apple II. It's probably the biggest computer release of the whole year. But we also talked about Mattel handheld stuff. We talked about Hi-Voltz, the game of Chase, a super important and big one, and then Safari, a crazy off-the-wall shooting at weird-looking animals game.
Yeah. You described it well. So make sure to check us out on Twitter for announcements about when our episodes are going up through the week. Send us an email if you have any question, and check out our website, which soon will feature a new video of Ben playing some of the songs that we have featured in these episodes.
Yes. I also, by the way, put up a page that just lists the pieces of music that I've done for each episode. I haven't done it for the most recent episodes because I still want people to guess for them and not just wait till I post it somewhere. But the first 20 something episodes, you can figure out what all the games are on that list. So yeah, check it out. And with that, we will catch you guys next time.
See y'all next time.